5, 4, 3.
Welcome back. In the previous video, we looked at some of the do's and don'ts for financial incentives for electric vehicles. These were focused mainly on one of the major barriers for the EV adoption, the high purchase costs. Which policies could be used to address the limited range and lack of charging infrastructures, and what other financial and non-financial incentives can be used to make electric vehicles more attractive. Developing charging infrastructure is one of the key incentives in driving for the electric vehicle market. The situation is often described as a chicken or egg dilemma. If there are no electric vehicles, companies will not invest in charging infrastructure, and vice versa. If there is not charging infrastructure, no one will buy electric vehicles. As a government, it is possible to intervene and support infrastructure development in the early days. In this lecture, we will discuss in what type of charging infrastructure to invest and how policies can be designed. It is known that recharging times of electric vehicles, for the time being, are considerably longer than refueling times for gasoline cars. Even at fast charges, recharging times are about half an hour compared to 5 minutes for a gasoline car. Electric vehicles can, however, profit from the fact that cars are parked more than 95% of the time. Charging infrastructure should therefore be available at places with longer dwelling times, such as at home, at work, or at public locations such as shopping malls. At these places, slower, so-called level 2 charging infrastructure should be placed. For the home and workplace, incentives that can reduce the purchase cost or charging infrastructure can be useful. However, in more dense urban areas in which parking is done in the public space, such incentives will not work. Local governments should step in to provide charging infrastructures for those that rely on street parking and charging near their home or workplace. Creating a public charging infrastructure network can be incentivized in several ways. First, governments can decide to operate their own network to invest in early charging infrastructure rollout. This is rather cost-intensive but can provide a solution if market parties are not interested. A second option is to provide a concession to a company that is willing to invest. This concession would provide this company the right to operate a network within a certain area for a fixed amount of time. Governments could provide additional financial incentives to reduce the risk for the company. If proven profitable, such a system can be used to lower future costs for charging point operators, as economies of scale are guaranteed. A third option is to allow companies freely on the market, but by smoothing the process of allowing companies to reserve parking spots only for electric vehicles and the reinforcement of this policy. And downside is that prices for charging can be substantially higher in this case. Besides a slower level 2 charging infrastructure for battery electric vehicles, it is also important to facilitate intercity travel by providing fast charge opportunities along corridors. Such an incentive is also very useful for hydrogen electric cars. Computer simulation can predict where the demand for fast charging is the highest and therefore to create an efficient charging infrastructure with the lowest amount of government support needed. Governments can also set regulations to ensure that access and payment for charging is standardized to avoid confusing consumers. Access should be equal across larger regions. Payment options can be set in such a way to prevent EV drivers to be connected to charging station too long, which could result in charging point congestion. A price per time unit can be used in place where suitable. Charging infrastructure development is an effective policy measure, but not the only one out there. Research shows that other measures, such as access to high-occupancy vehicle or bus lines, has proved to be effective. Especially in traffic-ridden cities, this can provide a strong incentive for those that want to avoid daily traffic jams. Access to such lanes can only be done in the early phase of adoption. This line might get congested as well if there are too many electric vehicles on the road. Another option is to offer free or preferred parking for electric vehicles. In combination with public charging infrastructure, this can be a strong incentive. In cities in which parking pressure is high, dedicated parking for electric vehicles, which are often under-occupied compared to regular parking spots, has shown to be effective. Assigning too many parking spots exclusively for electric vehicles, however, can spark protests from non-adopters. Finding the right balance is a key. Depending if your city or your country has toll roads or congestion zones, it is possible for electric vehicles to be exempt from tolls or congestion fees. Toll exemptions have proven to be effective in areas with toll bridges, tunnels and ferries, which provide a significant travel time reduction. A reduced congestion fee could be offset by higher fees for combustion engine vehicles and could also help to reduce congestion. As for high-occupancy vehicles line access, both these incentives can only be used temporarily and will get too busy if the number of EVs on the road rises. For all of the incentives discussed in this lecture, there are some important considerations. These incentives are most effective when combined with each other and with financial incentives. The combination provides a mix to lure consumers to buy an electric vehicle. The incentive should not only be local, but spread among a large area, if possible. This makes the incentive stronger and prevents unnecessary confusion among the EV owners. Also, governments should be transparent about how long they expect this incentive to last. Uncertainty about the longevity of the benefits could render this incentive worthless. To wrap up, this lecture has provided us with insight in how non-financial incentives can provide a strong signal to consumers. Charging infrastructure is vital for the adoption of electric vehicles, but also other incentives such as free parking, the access to high-occupancy vehicle lines attract consumers into buying electric vehicles.